In August of 2010, a teaser website went online, whatisicarus.com. On it were the very first trailers and screenshots for the third game in the BioShock series, BioShock Infinite. This news surprised me, as I had assumed the third BioShock game in development was just going to be BioShock 3, or even an MMO set in Rapture. I'm not gonna lie, so far it looks pretty disappointing. Allow me to elaborate. First of all, this isn't what BioShock is about. BioShock is Rapture. BioShock is Andrew Ryan. BioShock is Atlas, Tenenbaum, and Sander Cohen. BioShock is a grimy, claustrophobic, wet, dark atmosphere. So what baffles me is why Irrational, the studio behind it, chose to continue the name with this one. They had a running theme going here. In 1998, Irrational released System Shock 2, a shooter RPG hybrid set in the 22nd century in outer space, with a leveling system based around cybernetic upgrades and dealing with the themes of collectivism versus individualism. I am Showdown. In 2007, under the name 2K Boston Australia, they released BioShock, a shooter RPG hybrid set in 1960 in an underwater dystopia, with a leveling system based around genetic modifications and dealing with the philosophy and ethics of objectivism. Now, in 2012, Irrational plans to release BioShock Infinite, a shooter RPG hybrid set in a steampunk city in the sky in 1912. Hayao Miyazaki, anyone? With a leveling system based around what appears to be magical abilities and dealing with the ideology of jingoism. Now, I detect a pattern here. It seems to me that if Irrational was being, well, rational, then they would be a little bit more consistent here. Out in space with computers and robots and lasers, System Shock. Underwater with mutants, Art Deco architecture, and genetic experimentation, BioShock. Next game is set in the sky with what appears to be magical powers, vivid, colorful tones, and Miyazaki-style flying buildings. BioShock again? Really, guys? Wouldn't Aeroshock or Skyshock be more consistent with the past pattern that you have established here? See, here's the thing. The problem that I have with this isn't the name itself. It's what the choice of the name implies, and I can see two major possibilities here, both of which might be true at once. First, they're probably just counting on the BioShock name to sell the game. A well-recognized name is a great means of selling a product, and being tied as the highest-rated PC game of all time sure doesn't hurt sales. I don't have a problem with such a tactic, aside from the fact that it means Irrational doesn't think putting "from the studio that brought you BioShock" on the cover is a big enough selling point. Now, the second possibility is a lot more complicated, and what I'm about to say will probably enrage or confuse a lot of you, so just bear with me. I'll explain a lot of my declarations in other videos, so if you still have questions, they'll probably be answered later. The big problem with all of this is that it seems like Irrational, much like 2K Marin with BioShock 2, doesn't understand what made BioShock great. What made BioShock 2 so average, if not simply terrible, was that it picked the worst parts of the original, made them a little bit better, but lost almost everything that was great. The writing, the animation style, the music, the level design, the story, atmosphere, and voice acting, just name the big ones. And again, I'll explain all this in my later videos when I actually review these games, but I'll go ahead and say this. The shooter and RPG elements were the worst part about BioShock. They were good, but they weren't great. BioShock 2 just went crazy with this, letting Delta dual-wield plasmids and weapons and combine plasmid effects and make it so that upgrading your powers was actually worth it. All of this improvement was great in its own right, but they neglected the big things. So, based on the information from the trailers and press conferences that Irrational has released, it looks like they're repeating 2K Marin's mistakes. Yes, we've gone from shooting bees at enemies to flinging entire flocks of carnivorous birds at them. Yes, we've gone from shocking pools of water to sending storm clouds to do our electrical bidding. And yes, though we once caught and threw tennis balls from a makeshift turret, we now seize and fire mortar shells. That is awesome. But at what cost does it come? So let's look at the problems of what we've been shown. Alright, so we now have our own female sidekick. Irrational's already kind of deviating from the solitude that helped make the atmosphere of Rapture so captivating, but hey, there have been some great female characters in past video games, so I'm up for it. Let's see how Elizabeth fares compared to, say, Alex Vance from Half-Life 2, my personal favorite. Since Elizabeth's character hasn't been sufficiently developed yet, we'll just have to focus on the comparison of their physical appearance. So, what are Alex's physical attributes? Let's see. Modest, practical clothes, hair kept back, an athletic figure, a natural-looking but attractive face, and a belt for her gun and tools. So then, compared to her, what are Elizabeth's attributes? A dress with a corset drawn so tight that it looks like she could pass out at any moment, loose, wavy hair, an enormous amount of cleavage, and a face that looks like it's been shot up with Botox, and then they stuck two big puppy dog eyes on it. It just screams eye candy to me. The closest to a female sidekick that we got in the original was Tannenbaum, and her appearance was limited to a silhouette through a window and a shot from a balcony. In Rapture, the splicers Jack encountered were the remnants of an ultra-capitalist society consisting of a near-violent dichotomy between the working class and the aristocracy. The splicers are characterized through their crazed musings about their past lives, a former businessman mumbling about failing market conditions, a mother searching for a daughter who's been taken to be turned into a little sister, a fisherman rambling about how the city's rejection of God led to its downfall, and these little conversations with themselves, coupled with the splicers' tendencies towards self-preservation in combat, help to humanize the enemies that Jack is fighting for his life against. It allows the player to have an actual emotional reaction to his or her opponents. So, compared to the splicers of Rapture, how do the fine, upstanding citizens of Columbia behave? Really? Really, guys? Whooping and running in a straight line? And they just stand in one place to be shocked? Lastly, there's the philosophy aspect. Now, I'm still working on my video about the philosophy and politics of Rapture, so I'll go into greater detail then. But for now, suffice it to say that BioShock presented an excellent analysis and judgment of the philosophy of objectivism through Andrew Ryan and his counterparts. Now Irrational seems to have fallen from such intellectual means of analyzing philosophical and political doctrines, and just chooses to characterize the adherents of jingoism as racist, fundamentalist, right-wing nutjobs. Are they trying to draw some crude comparison to the modern-day Tea Party? Either way, it's a really ridiculous step down from the complexity of objectivism's representation in Rapture. Now, I have one big footnote to put under this entire video. I know this is a work in progress. I know that Irrational can and will develop and refine it before it's released in 2012. In fact, I think they can make this phenomenal. These are the people directly responsible for BioShock and System Shock 2, and indirectly responsible for Thief 2: The Metal Age, all three of which are in my top 20 video games of all time. Now, despite all the terrible stuff I just said about BioShock Infinite, I would like to add that Columbia itself, the city, is just awesome. It's gorgeous from an aesthetic standpoint, and if they really excel at the level design here, exploring it is going to be a blast. Forget any of the combat. Thanks for watching.